Patrick and lifted his head. I am a kind man. I am a generous man. When we deliver this thing, you know, I will give you a cut out of every bag sold. Patrick's eye lit up like a lightning bulb. He knelt instantly and clutched his boss's trousers. His heart pounded. He wanted to express his thanks, but the word failed him. Come on, Patrice. Don't be a child. Get up. Oga. I am a good man, Patrice. He placed a hand on his chest. Everywhere in town. Word out where is that I hate and treat Abakaliki people as second-class citizens. Your people reverse my business rival. Anselm Esiogbu Moneke as a saint, but here I am with an Abakaliki man as my manager. Tell me, does Munweke have an Abakaliki man as manager? Patrick said nothing. My father, Vincent Akidi, came here years ago, acquired lands legitimately, I must add. He was a hard worker, traded with the whites, and built farms and businesses here. Became a warrant chief and represented your people at the Eastern House of Assembly and married your women. But no, the Abakaliki man taught him a Wawa hater. They said the land were forcefully acquired and women forcefully married, and that he took up political and social positions meant for them. How did you pay him back for the commerce he brought? The services he gave. You killed him in your reign. Still, Patrick said nothing. But, like my father, I am a good man. I will treat you right. Patrick stood motionless, silent as a lamb led to the slaughter. Get up, boy. Get up, my boy. Ordinarily, Patrice would have been bothered that he was being called boy, as he was 41 years old and his boss 58. But he did not care. He did not as much as raise a hair on his arm. So long as he got to work for this important man, he could call him dog if he wished. Stammering, Patrice asked, will you do it, Chairman, sir? He was already picturing in his mind what he could do with such amount. Instantly, he multiplied the amount by the numbers of bags of rice. He could bring his wife and children to Abakaliki and rent a one-room and a parlor apartment and put his children in a good government school and pay for his wife to have a small shop at Abakpa Market. But he knew his wife did not like to live in the city. He could marry a second wife, someone with a teacher's training certificate, and think and keep her in the town to show his status. He could marry 2 more, even like his boss, who had 3. There were possibilities. In his misery, Patrice failed to remember Susan, to realize that she was grieving of the separation from her mother, her brother. Indeed, she had lost her mother, for Patrice had forbidden her from ever visiting her mother's village. She had also lost her brother, whom she was so close to, and her father, whom she was used to seeing for a few 2 or 3 months, was now living in the village, not leaving his room or the compound, refusing to talk to anyone. She could not comprehend that. Susan walked on tiptoes around her father, learning to make herself invisible. If she returned from school dirty, she would hurry to the backyard to wash her uniform before he saw her, having received beatings countless times before. Her father no longer checked her books or inquired of her studies. Things had changed. So, as Christmas approached and people prepared, Patrice behaved as if he lived in a different world. Indeed, he did. He had emaciated some more than when he was tension. For nothing ate the flesh on a man's body more than worries. At night, he tossed about in bed, thinking about baby. He missed her smile. He missed made small talks which took his mind off his worries. But he could not go to her to beg her. He also knew she would not come back. But he had taken the oath of loss of wealth and children, and she believed if he was wrong, then his oath would rub off on her. Most afternoons, he thought about his life in Abakaliki, how occasionally he hissed off some women. A few times he had had a girlfriend, but one memory Patrice Ikebe cherished the most was his short affair with Madame Ijioma's sister. She was young, 22. She had told him. Like Madame Ijeoma, she was tall, slim, light-skinned, and airy. Her eyes appeared to meet light sparkles, and Patrice could not have ever taken such a girl until the day they rode to the mill in the same car. It was Ijioma's turn to cook that week, and she had ordered Patrice to take her sister to the mill in her Volkswagen to get some rice. He had greeted her when they got into the car, out of respect, having learned that she was studying to be a medical doctor at the university. You can't greet me. I am way too younger than you for you to greet me, she told him. Apoba, Patrice had said, greeting is not by age. No, sir, she said. Then she surprised him by placing a hand on his lap. His eyes widened, causing his heart to begin a marathon race. Sorry, I did not greet you when I came in. My sister just made me angry. As they approached the gate, she said, I hear you do a great job working for my sister's husband. Well, I try, he shrugged. I try. Who told you? He turned to look at her. She smiled at him. Her dimples were so deep enough he could pour water into them, and they would hold. Her smile, God, something stirred in Patrice. But who was he to talk to this young girl? He was way older, and he was not educated. Everyone is talking about it. Like who and who? My sister. No way. She hates me. Saijema can be a handful. She thinks herself so highly. Well, she's an important woman. What makes her important? The hand returned to his lap. This time it stayed. He was uncomfortable. Madame Ijeoma has a master's degree in business accounting in London. That's where she met my chairman. She is a big woman. Her father, your father, is an important man in Nigeria. The young woman sighed. You see, Oga Pati, such things shouldn't make one carry their shoulders high as if Naha Adi Anyunsi. We are all humans. Patrice said nothing, preferring to stare ahead, ignoring the hand that had refused to leave his lap. I see. The way she treats you, how she talks at you. It is nothing. Stop saying that, she said. Up seemed a kind man. You're hardworking, Dalu. Even your boss, my sister's husband, that one should do better. I am not complaining, Biko. He turned to the girl. Do you say I am complaining? She smiled at him and rubbed his light. Around 8 o'clock, there was a knock on his door. He opened his door, dressed in trousers, his upper body bare, showing his protruding stomach, which he was proud of. But when the girl looked at him and at his stomach and trousers and up at his face, he felt ashamed of the stomach. He felt old. She was carrying a tray of food. Good evening, sir. You brought my food? Yeah. And any problem with that? Please, Madame Ijeoma will not approve. Don't mind my sister. Here, take. She extended the tray. But before he could take it, she stepped in and dropped the tray on his table. Your place is neat, Patrice smiled. Please. Patrice went to the door, looked out, and whispered, please leave. She giggled and turned to leave. She rubbed his stomach. I like this. Patrice could not sleep that night. In fact, as soon as she left, he unplugged the electric iron he was using to iron his shirt and folded the cloths. He could not even eat, for his mouth was heavy. In the morning, when he took the newspapers upstairs, their eyes met. She winked at him, and Patrice hurried upstairs like a teenager. The next night, when she brought his food again, she said, I like you. You? Patrice said. He remained at the door. I don't want anyone to see you. I don't want to lose my job. He left the door open so that no one would think anything sinister was going on behind closed doors. Why would you lose your job? She was dressed in a nightgown, numerous hair on her cleavage. He was blinking too fast, swallowing too hard. I like you. You're too young. Really? He said nothing. You like older women? I like women my age, women I can talk with, that can understand me. I see. You're scared. She laughed. Patrice nodded but regretted admitting it. But indeed he was. He feared a sister who had the ears of his boss. Your sister will make sure I lose my job if she finds out you enter my room. Do not worry yourself. It is a turn to be with a man this week. She went upstairs long ago. Patrice's eye widened at the audacity of this. He did not even know her name. He did not want to seem to have any intention by asking her a name. At school, young girls like me have men twice your age as lovers. Patrice swallowed hard. He wondered why she was telling him this. Do you have one? No, I don't, she said abruptly. Most girls who do so for money. What do I need money for? The young girl sat on the bed and reclined, her hands at her back, her eyes on Patrick. The gap between the button on her gown widened, and he could see. He went to the door and peeped out again. Please leave, he said in a whisper. Are you afraid that I would demand that you take care of me? How? Like ask for money to go to the salon, the boutique? She stood smiling. I will come back by 10. Don't lock your door. I won't knock. She rubbed his stomach like the night before and hurried off. Patrice hurried to the bathroom. He had never been so excited by anyone in his life. At 10 that night, the door opened. She walked in, still dressed in the nightwear. Before she came in, Patrice was sitting on the bed, wondering for the millionth time if he should lock the door, if he should listen to the second voice in his head advising him to lock the door and run away from Satan. The spirit willing to lock the door was strong, but the flesh too weak. The young girl smiled when she entered. Guy man. She teased him. Guy man. He wondered how a 20-year-old got that kind of courage, the swag, the freedom of mind to take such initiative. He inhaled deeply, sweat dripping down his armpits. He was dressed in starched and iron shirts and trousers, as if he was going out to work. You are overdressed, she whispered and smiled. Then she sat beside him. Turn on your radio. I could be loud. Patrice hesitated. Then he stood and turned on the radio, which was on the floor beside the bed. Dolly Parton was singing Love is Like a Butterfly on the FM. Perfect, she said and giggled. By the time he sat on the bed, she was nude, save for her underwear. He did not know when she took off her clothes, perhaps because his mind was foggy. His body was shivering as if he were a teenager. This girl was too intelligent, too beautiful for him. She was his boss's sister-in-law, the sister to the most influential of all his boss's wives. And soon, as soon as he sat, she climbed atop his legs and pushed him gently onto the bed, finding his mouth in a kiss, the way no one before, finding his nipples. No one had ever done that to him, ever before. As she sat on top of him, what was in his mind was that there was no protection and that he could get her pregnant, and that would be the end of him. It lasted about as long as it took Dolly Parton to finish saying, "Love is like a butterfly and makes one heart feel strange inside." Patrice apologized. She smiled. "I like it, don't worry. Tomorrow you will be more relaxed." Tomorrow, and she wore her nightgown. At the door, she turned and pointed, saying, "Keep that one, save for me." Patrice followed her finger, pointing on the floor to see the white lacy underwear, but no words came out. Such was the kind of life he had in the city before his chief turned it back to him. In the village, his situation had deteriorated, so the important son of his people, who was revered and worshipped, refused to pick up the piece of his life. He could not comprehend why his life seemed to have fallen apart, and because he did not believe that the oath was the problem, he remained a deteriorating man. In fact, most people in the village did not believe that the oath had had any effect on Patrice. For a start, Methuselah Enigwe, whom he took the oath with, was nowhere to be found. Shortly after the ritual oath was administered, Methuselah left the village, and no one had heard of him. His wife and children lived in extreme poverty for a little over a year before one day they disappeared from the village. It was confusing to everyone. They left with nothing, perhaps just their clothes. Even Methuselah's brother and kinsmen, whom they shared a compound with, did not know when they left. This fueled the speculations. So, some argued that Patrice had lost a son and fallen into poverty. Hence, he must be the guilty one. Others said that Methuselah was guilty, and it was why he left the village, followed a relation of his mother to some faraway town, and a year after, his wife and their children also vanished. Could they have met an untimely death? People thought. He lived the life of a hermit for 3 years. He had not cultivated any of his numerous rice farms. He had no money, and when his father advised him to get his brothers and a few friends to assist him to cultivate some small acres of the swamp, so he would not need to pay anyone for labor, Patrice ignored the man. He could not comprehend his brothers or cousins, people who used to come to him for assistance. Patrice did not attend any function, not the church, not the village meetings or gatherings, not any ceremony. When Ofobueke's sisters got married, he showed up because he could not refuse his dear cousin, and people strained to catch a glimpse of him. Whenever his eyes met theirs, they looked away, and then they talked, and this made Patrice extremely uncomfortable. Whenever he saw people talking, he believed they were discussing him. That night, in his room, his transistor tuned to the FM. As he listened to Ikwe sing on radio, tears clouded his eyes. The night was dark outside and his room. He had not bothered to light his hurricane lantern. He was preserving his kerosene so that his daughter could use it when she needed to study at night. He forced her to study every night. He wanted her to grow up to become an independent-minded as Ijioma's sister, Neoma. It was this brief encounter with Neoma that had made Patrice believe that if he worked hard and became an important person, he could have anything he wanted, just like Sir Douglas Akidi. He could have any woman he wanted. It was why he did not think twice when his in-law came to withdraw his wife. That morning before the oath, he had thought, to hell with baby. She was uneducated. She had not seen the world. He could go back to town and marry a nurse or a teacher or even a medical doctor like Nneoma. Then life happened, and he was stuck in the God-forsaken village. An owl cried somewhere at the apple tree at the back of his father's hut. A strange bird made long, piercing cries at intervals, like one calling on a neighbor. It reminded him of the strange dream he used to have while in detention. He sighed again. Just shortly before midnight, someone opened the door of his room. He sprang to his feet. "You are awake? You did not knock. If I had knocked, you would have pretended to be asleep." Ofobueke turned on his torchlight and pointed it on the bed. The room was as clean and well kept as he had always known it. It did not make sense to him that while he still found him to mop his house and keep everywhere clean, he admired this great man who was battling a force greater than himself. Ofobueke had tried several times to make sense of the situation, but could not. He did not understand why Patrice insisted on taking any oath at all. He was a well-traveled man, a man who carried himself with respect, who would have frowned if he heard that any of his own kinsmen were to involve themselves in such a situation when they were not sure of who took their money. Bongo's Ikwe is good, Ofobueke said. He sings like one who was gifted the skills of music by Mami Wata herself. True, Patrice agreed. He sat slouched, his arms resting on his laps. He was rubbing his palms together. I did not notice when you left. Yeah, I needed to listen to the news. I see. There was a moment of silence. Ofobueke did not know how to say what he came to say. He had tried to talk to Patrice, but all his admonitions had failed. He and Patrice's father had done all they could. They have went as far as arranging a wife for him. The woman came and lived in the house. They say they wanted Patrice to know her first, before finalizing matters with her people. But Patrice would not hear of it. Why would anyone find him a wife? It was an insult. He had chased the young woman away with a machete and sparked off talks around the village. Many said that the young girl's family was treading turbulent water before Patrice could be guilty of the oath and inherit his cause. Ofobueke cleared his throat but said nothing. Patrice said, "You are here this night. You should be out drinking with your friends." "Well, I thought you would be lonely." "How did it go?" "It broke my back to organize this marriage ceremony for my sister." "You did the best for her." "It was not easy. Things are difficult. The country is in a terrible time. There is no money anywhere." "True," Patrice agreed. There was a moment of silence as each weighed their thoughts. "I have come, my brother, to put my head to yours. Our father says that if it affects the eyes, surely it affects the nose. When the eyes cry, the nose cries as well." "That one is true. Your situation gives me sleepless night, brother." "You should not worry for me." Ofobueke looked at him. Then he placed his hand on Patrice's hand. "I should not? No, I must worry. You are aware, Oga Party, that humans are not created equal. Some are greater than others. You are greater than me. You are greater than all of us in this place. Worse. No, you are still a great man, Practice. Greatness is in the head, in the mind. I say that I worry. I worry because we are not all born to be great. Some people around us are meant to drag us up. You were to drag me up. You found those people who would be my parents, who would be my partners in cassava business before what happened. Patrice nodded. and keeps quiet. Still sludge is held bent. Today, I cultivated cassava and sold in trucks in Abakaliki. I took the initiative from you, loaded my cassava, and took them to town. Now, I have partners. I am doing well. I have built a cement block house. I roofed it before my sister's wedding. They had some drunk returning from the wedding as they sang in loud drunken voices. Had the power to push a man to heaven and push him back to earth. If I can achieve this alone, imagine what I would have achieved with you by my side, Patrice. Patrice heaved and took a deep breath. His eyes were misty. He willed himself not to cry. It was going to be a shame to cry in front of his cousin. There was silence, prolonged, enough for the all to cry 10 times, enough for some women returning from the wedding to walk past the compound till their voices faded, enough for his daughter Suzanne to open the door and walk into her room. She had just returned from the wedding, where they danced to loud music from massive speakers positioned in the compound. I am no one to advise you, Patrice, but here, Ofoboke took out a small nylon from his pocket. It was black, wrapped into a ball. He placed it in his cousin's hands and held the two hands together. What is in that nylon is money. Patrice's eyes lit up. He sat up. Where did you get this money? I sold all my cassava. No, listen first. No, please listen, Oga Party, please. Still holding his cousin's hands, Ofoboke said, you were created to be a great man. You are the one that is supposed to give me this money. Life has happened. Yes, but don't let it pull you down. Ofoboke shook his head to cut him off when he wanted to talk. This money is not a gift. No, it is a loan, he said, knowing that Patrice was a proud man. Who am I to gift you money? He said. Can a yam heap compare itself to a hill? Patrice looked away. Here is what I propose. Take this money to town. Go there. You have people. You have connections. It is not a lot of money. But if you find one willing to help you, you can start something in a year or less. You can come back here and prove to everyone that you are still the great Patrice Ikebe. Patrice looked up. Tears misted his eyes, but he willed them not to drop. His mouth was open, saliva pooling inside. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bubbling. A sudden heat rushed through his body. The room swayed before him. He was seeing possibilities. Ofoboke had made a good proposition, not another suggestion to take up rice farming in the village like his father and brothers had urged. This was different. It was as if an opportunity he had been waiting for. And there was money to make it happen. Ofoboke did not want to stay long, so that Patrice would not change his mind. He stood abruptly. I must leave. No one knew when I left, and they might begin to worry. Patrice said, I cannot accept this. This money. Why? I cannot inconvenience you. Don't worry. I have cassava stem to plant. Besides, this is not a gift. It is a loan. You will pay me back. And if you are still the Patrice I know, who helped that Aroman make his money, you will bounce back. You will return in no distant time and tell us of all your exploits, of Obueke turned and walked away, shutting the door after him. Patrice walked to the door and leaned against it. For a moment, he stood there frozen. Then his legs gave way as he crumpled to the floor, and he wept. In a room, Susan heard her father, but was too afraid to knock at his door. After a while, she came to his door, leaned on the other side, and cried. Patrice heard her sobbing, and it added to his shame. The next morning, when one still needed a lamp to see clearly, that was before them, for the mist had built roadblocks, such that walking was difficult without bumping into objects. When road, Patrice went into Susan's room. "Wake up, Susan, wake up," he whispered. The young girl sat up, rubbing his eyes. She was now 13, but like her mother, her beauty had started to show. Her dark complexioned skin looked smooth. Her chiseled nose looked like what man made. She had on an afro so large she needed to wet it to comb it, and now they looked ruffled in a beautiful way. Like her mother, she was taller than most people of her age. The ring on her neck were like several tires placed one atop the other. She rubbed at her eyes. "Drink some water, then grab some clothes. If you are leaving." "Papa, leaving? Where? Where?" "Shh." He placed a finger on his lips. "We are leaving for the town. Things will be better again." Their eyes met, holding for a brief moment. For the first time in a long while, Susan saw hope in her father's eyes. Her heart leapt. Hurry! That morning, before the village stirred, father and daughter moved quickly down the road towards the junction where they were sure to hitch a ride. Patrice carried nothing, while Susan balanced a bag of few clothes and books on her head. They took long strides, not looking back, as if escaping some invisible force, running towards light, towards hope. Chapter 3. A man who does not listen makes mistakes. It was close to noon. The sun had taken up whips and lashed at everyone who dared to step out to the open. But Patrice Ikebe did not mind. When they arrived in town, the first person he went to see was Chief Anselm Munueke. The office was sparsely furnished, though he had been there several times. It was the first time he was entering the man's office. Before going to visit the chief, he went to a salon and had his hair shampooed and shaved to a low cut. He also had his worn-out shoes polished by a shoe shiner who happened to be walking past the salon as he was stepping out. He thought he looked presentable at least. His coat was old, his shirt stained in some places, and his trousers patched up at the bottom. But he tried to walk with his shoulders high and his eye open. As Patrice stepped into the office, Chief Anselm Manueke lifted his head from the papers in front of him. If he was shocked at seeing Patrice or at his looks, he did not show it. He beamed and stood. "Oh, Patrice, wonderful. Come. Come on, Patrice. Where is in God's name have you been all this while?" Emboldened, Patrice approached and took the chief's hand in his, bowing fully. "Oh, don't bow for me, Patrice. You are my Oga. Come on, Patrice." The man moved out of his side by the decks. They stood, each appraising the other. "Sit," he said. "Now, where have you been?" "I have been in my village, chief, sir." Patrice looked away wearily, the tears coming to his eyes not to show. Look, man." The chief shook his head. "The grasses, they say, whisper. I heard what happened. So should I say some of what happened?" "Yes, Sir Douglas Akidi put me in detention for several months. He took away every penny I had saved. Owe Loife Nine, poor you." "Yes, sir. I went back to my people and have been managing life." The chief had a goatee that stretched he carried in. "I hear he was annoyed that I took the contract from the Fulanis." "Yes, chief. After I negotiated and concluded the deal, I traveled home but met some misfortune. I was delayed for a few days. By the time I got back, he believed I intentionally ruined the deal by not showing up. He did not listen to you. He listened to no one. Typically, dogs make mistakes." There was a moment of silence, and the chief asked, "You care for anything? Brandy, beer, soft drinks?" No. "Look, Pat, no matter the situation, man must drink. Alcohol is the oil that lubricates the head, helping it think clearly." He smiled. No, chief, sir." Patrice shifted and bent forward, almost falling to the floor. "I have come to ask for a job, chief, sir." The chief was silent again. "Only a job will lubricate my head to think straight." The chief nodded. After what seemed like 2 minutes, he stood and began to pace the office. He went to an almanac on the wall and flipped it. Some of the dates were marked. The fan was rotating heavily to dispel the heat. Some women were shouting commands at one another. When he turned to Patrice, he sat on his desk and said in a low tone, "I am indeed very sorry. I cannot take you, Pat." It was like a thunderbolt had hit Patrice. "But why? Why, Chief?" "Douglas and I." The rift between Douglas and I increased after that contract. He thought I connived with you to take it, but those people approached me on their own. Chief Manueke clapped his hands in emphasis. "I didn't seek them out." He paused. "If I take you in, he will be vindicated. He will tell Bakaliki how terrible a person Manueke is." Patrice knelt instantly. "I have no one else to turn to," he said. "Please." The chief was quiet, thinking, caressing his goatee. "I am experienced, sir. I know this job. Together we can be a strong match for Sir Douglas." The man smiled briefly. "Look, man, I am not Douglas. I am not one for competition. I move at my pace, and God does the rest. I don't want to hurry to acquire wealth. Ka mamu ga agba ka ngwo, ma agba ka nkwo. Please, I have ideas I can bring to the company, Chief, sir. I don't doubt that, man. The chief thought of the possibility that Patrice was still as sharp as he used to be, since he had been away from action for several years. But that was not why he was saying no. He did not want Sir Douglas Akidi's troubles. He shook his head with finality. Then he went back to his side of the decks. Patrice stood. He thanked the chief and turned to go. Chief Manueke called. He drew out a drawer attached to his desk and took out an envelope. He counted out some money and extended it to him. It was a lot of money. Patrice's eyes flew open, but he managed to hide his shock, and to square his shoulders, he said, "No, thank you for your kindness, Chief, sir." The chief stood. "Patty, take it. You need it, please." He did not want to seem poor or for the chief to have some reprieve while narrating the story that though he refuses him a job, he gave him some money. He shook his head, turned, and walked away. Sir Douglas was meeting with some prominent of the office. The secretary avoided looking at him. She need not respond when he greeted. Some workers who knew him came upstairs to greet him, quickly and hurried away, not wanting to be seen with him. When Patrice asked about business, they mumbled and walked away. He hated that people who used to defer to him, who used to stand to greet him, and who asked for favors from him, now mock him with their eyes. After the arrowmen filed out and the boozer summoned the secretary into the office, Patrice was ushered in by the secretary. Her face crunched like one who just received some tongue lashing. Now Patrice stood by the door, looking at the man who used to be his boss. Nina Simeon played on the turntable. Her voice echoed loudly, then came down in a whisper, some words in a way that appealed to the heart. But Patrice was not in the mood to appreciate Nina Simeon's voice. Sir Douglas now all over his head. His beard had curiously turned half gray and half black, as if someone took a brush and painted the hair side of the beard white and the right side dark. It made him look menacing. He is not have been shaven since Patrice last saw him. It had grown so much that his mouth was completely covered. The mustache had merged with the full beard, and coupled with his afro, he looked like a baboon, his eyes roaming like one about to steal some meat from the pot. "Patrice," the man said. Patrice knelt instantly. "My chairman, sir. We have not seen you for 3 or is it 4 years now?" "3, sir. Sorry if I bothered your meeting, chairman, sir." "Oh, 3 years and you look like one vomited by a cat." Patrice had and breathed out. It was a double-edged knife and struck at his chest. He appraised Patrice for a while. "Well, you did bother my meeting because soon as I was told you were here, my mood changed." He rubbed at his beard. "You see, I want to build a supreme Arochukwu in a modern world where our children can access foreign education and with persuasion, inducement, treats, and other means penetrate the government in the future. I think that Nigeria is too great and complex to be administered by the military for a long time. One day, and I mean soon, we will get back to democracy. This country has a lot of intelligent people for us to continue to be under military juntas. We need to be prepared for this time. Patrice wondered why he was telling him this, perhaps to remind him of how important he was. We need to get some of our people active in politics. I will provide the necessary funding and bribes, the necessary military personnel, so they can get appointment here and contract there, so that the democracy is here. Democracy is here. Our people will be the most of the places. The Fulani are doing it already. We should copy from them. We should do what our ancestors did. If possible, we can restore the strength of the arrow, as it were during the Confederacy, when we exercised in the entire Igbo area down to the present southern Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea. Patrice remained mute, smiling. Sir Douglas said, "Enough of that," he shrugged. "Look at you." The man raised his hand and waved at him. "Just negodi." He took his time, taking measured walks, till he approached Patrice, where he was kneeling. He sniffled and waved at his nose. "You stink, boy." "Sir, why are you here?" "Sir, please. You want your job back?" Patrice nodded. He was kneeling on all fours. By this time, his head bent. Sir Douglas grabbed him by the head and lifted his face. "When you worked for me, boy, you thought you could do without me, hmm? Look at you. Without my wife's food, you look like a dog just returning from the Nigerian Biafra war." "Sir, life has been difficult. I lost my son. I lost everything, sir. When that day I got to town, you took all the money in my room, sir." "Shut your mouth there." And Sir Douglas Akidi began to walk back to his desk. "Sir, it was all I had. I stayed in police cell for months. I left out nothing, sir." "You deserved it," Sir Douglas shouted out. "The poor will always think they can do without the elite. But without people like us, whose idea and affluence turn the wheel of the economy, you would all go begging. I'm deeply sorry for not showing up, and we lost the job to Chief Munweke. I was met with some misfortune that delayed me in the village, and you brought this misfortune to me." "Biko no, sir," Sir Douglas sighed. He sat on his heavy chair. He rubbed hair backwards. He stared at the ceiling for some time. The grandfather clock sang chiki choko, chiki chiki choko, chiki chiki choko, chiki. Patrice's heart sang along. When Sir Douglas spoke, it was with a measured baritone. "Now, tell me, boy, what do you want?" I want my job back." Sir Douglas laughed. It was that kind of throaty laughter one had and thought a lion had roared. He clutched his side and hit his hand on the deck stool 3 times and disturbed some files. When he was done, by what time Patrice was on shore, looking about like a rat caught by a strong trap, Sir Douglas said, "Over my dead body, would you work for me as manager?" "You? Never." "Sir?" "No." He was now serious. One moment he was laughing, and the next he was too serious, as if he just learned of some terrible news. Patrice stood. "Please, sir." Sir Douglas shook his head. Patrice was trembling. All hope was lost. The image of Chief Umeke offering him money flashed in his mind, and again, for his stupid pride, he hated not accepting the money. "Please, sir." Sir Douglas shook his head vehemently. Reluctantly, Patrice turned and grabbed the door knob. His palm was sweaty. He tried to turn the knob, but did not have the strength. He realized he had not eaten. He remembered that his daughter hadn't had food either. "Patrice," he turned. Sir Douglas had a sinister smile on his face. "What happened to your son?" He died, sir. He died while I was in the cell, sir." He thought he saw a hint of shame on Sir Douglas's face. "Was he sick?" Yes, sir. I was not there." "You caused it. The moment you began to take responsibility for your failings and not blame them on misfortune and ill luck, the sooner you rise from the ashes." "Sir?" "You brought it on yourself, boy." "Yes, sir." He was writing. He was wringing his hands. "And your wife and other children?" "How many?" "My wife left. It was the problem that kept me in the village and made us lose the contract, sir. I have just one now, a daughter. She is here with me. I couldn't leave her there in the village." And he made a final attempt. "Please, sir, for her sake, because you know." Okay, the man waved a hand as if swatting a nagging fly. "For old time's sake, Patrice," the big man said. "I remember several times when you had a cover for me when Ijeoma inquired about those little girls I had dealings with." Sir Douglas was talking about his numerous mistresses and how his second wife, Ijeoma, the noisiest of all the 3 wives, made it her duty to sniff her husband out to embarrass him. Patrice used to go to greater length to this everything on the loop.
"Sir, I will give you a job at the mill as a handman." "Handman?" "Yes, and you should be grateful." "Patrice, huh?" Patrice's mouth was open. He was shocked. "Handman?" The handman assisted the milling machine operator to fetch water for the power lister to ensure the belts were in good shape. He oiled the machine parts. He was paid pittance. Patrice was the one who introduced this job. He had convinced Sir Douglas that if the machine operator had a handman, things would operate smoothly. He had suggested the salary. He knew it was nothing. You should take it, boy." Patrice hesitated. "Unsure." "Thank you. Sir," he said finally. "Well, the only thing I can do for you is that you keep your old room. I don't think anyone is here now. Keep it until you can bounce back at your feet. Then off you go. He did not know if this was good, but at least it would save him money. Thank you, sir. I am only doing you this favor because of your daughter with you. Yes, she is, sir. All right. The big man bent and started to pick up files. Dalurine, Patrice thanked him and hurried out of the office. His eyes were misty. He could work hard and in a few months get a better opportunity and leave. For the sake of Suzanne, he was going to accept the job. He was going to put her in school. This job was the only straw he could catch in drowning waters, but it was a weak straw. Before Patrice went back to he took Suzanne to the restaurant where she ate yam porridge while he had akpu and ofe onugbo. Suzanne thought the food tasted great. He told her to wait till she ate what they cooked at the mansion. It was a glimpse to a new life, and the young girl was excited about what was possible. At the mansion, Ekutosi's Peugeot 504 was parked in front of the porch. There were children playing in front of the house. They ran to greet Patrice. They asked questions, wanting to know where he had been and why he no longer lived with them. He rubbed their heads and asked where Big Mommy was. They pointed towards the garden, and he asked Suzanne to follow him. The garden was at the left side of the building. It was expansive. Each of the wives had a section where she grew her vegetables. Close to it was an orchard of assorted fruit trees. An ube tree, so tall and huge, was at the center, and beneath it was a table and few chairs. It was where Sir Douglas sat to chat with visitors. On some evenings, when he felt like staying outdoors, there were limes and grapes and tangerines all about. Josie was harvesting some ugu vegetables when Patrice approached. He coughed to catch her attention. She turned, and her hand fell to the ground. Her mouth was open in shock. Patrice wondered if she was shocked at seeing him, looking all emaciated and wretched like a cat hit by a moving car, or that he had the audacity to show up at her home. Patrice made to approach, to pick up the kitchen knife, but her hand. Chelu there. Patrice greeted. Nde woma. Suzanne greeted. Good afternoon, ma. And who is this? My daughter, Suzanne. Greet. I have greeted, Papa. Greet, my friend. And Suzanne, curtsying, greeted again. This time louder. Good afternoon, ma. I have heard. Ekutosi could not help but notice how beautiful the young girl was. She had no single resemblance to Patrice, her father. Ekutosi turned back to face Patrice. Madam, chairman has said I can stay here. Patrice saw the surprise on the woman's face. He noticed that she was bigger and wondered how she managed to get through a door or to drive. He wondered how she managed to walk without support. Her arms were so large, the flesh jiggled at every movement. Her face was puffy, but her eyes looked beautiful still. Her face had black spots. She now bleached her skin. He was surprised at the sudden change in her complexion. Perhaps Ekutosi, on realizing how her husband loved light-skinned women, felt she needed to prove to him that though God created her black, she had the means at her disposal to make herself white. Oh, she said, obviously surprised to hear that her husband had asked Patrice to stay. I hope not as manager. Patrice did not respond to that. His shoulders raised, he turned, taking the hand of his daughter. He began to walk back. That night, Mozart's Overture to Don Giovanni played from the turntable in Sir Douglas's room upstairs. Patrice sat outside his room, listening, his heart filled with longing. It was the first he would be sleeping anywhere in his own house in 3 years. It was also the first time he was going to sleep in the same room with his daughter. This new closeness was going to take him a lot of getting used to, he knew. He did not like it. He wanted to be feared, respected. He thought that if there was some distance between them, then Suzanne would revere him the more. Now he feared he would have to endure listening to her chatter about every evening and night. He was going to rent an apartment as soon as he started making money. These were the thoughts in his mind when he dozed off in his bed, exhausted by all the troubles he had to go through all day. And this night, strangely, the nightmares of 3 years earlier, when he was in police detention, returned. The akbutu tree, curiously, is no longer in his father's compound in the village, Sir Douglas's mansion. The tree is taller than the 2 stories, taller than his eyes can reach. There are things on it, things too terrifying for his eyes to behold, for his mind to discern. He can see a creature on the tree, a creature of several heads, and a manhood so large it extends down from the tree, attempting to touch him. He tries to get away from it. Yet there are masquerades, so many of them surrounding him, preventing him from getting away. Patrice jostled awake to realize he was covered in sweat. He had been screaming and crying, just the way he used to when he was in police cell. He removed his shirt, which was soaked in sweat. He stood, surprised that Suzanne slept through it all. As Patrice paced the room, he remembered that the last time he had this sort of terrible dream, he was in Abakaliki, in a cell. And when he returned home, where the akpatu tree was located, his son had passed. Now he was in Abakaliki again, and there was a similar dream. And curiously, the tree was at the back of the mansion. He tried to discern it. What does that mean? What does the manhood extending to the ground from the tall tree mean? He feared that it might be a harbinger of a terrible thing to happen. He went back to bed. This time, he thought of Norma. It was in this same room that she used to come to be with him. It was the middle of the rainy season of 1980. Patrice had been living at the mansion for several months. By November, it would be 1 year, and he was not sure he would be able to leave anytime soon, since what he made at the mill was just enough to do nothing. As a handman, he was poor. So poor, he now wondered if it was the oath that tied a noose around his neck. Each time Patrice thought of this, he remembered Methuselah Enigwe and calmed down. Methuselah had gone missing alongside his father, so he believed he had died. If he were alive, then he must be suffering somewhere. His routine now included trekking to the mill every morning. By evening, his hands would be all greasy, his back bent. The work was not what annoyed him the most. It was that he encountered folks from his village and several others who knew him in his glory days. He wondered what the talks were in the village. He could not imagine it. It was what ate him up. It ached him more than the work he did at the mill, and he mostly devised many means to try to avoid meeting them. This put him on edge. Whenever his name was called, he jumped. His eyes roved like those of a thief in action. And when he met someone he knew, he pretended to be the machine's operator, even though that wasn't a noble job to compare to what he used to be, the respected, important man who had the ears of one of the wealthiest men in the region. After work, Patrice trekked back. stopping to pick a few things for Suzanne, in to spare. He got her new school sandals. He got her some bananas or groundnuts. And mostly, he got her chop one, chop two, which she liked a lot. At home, he hurried to the back of the mansion to his apartment, where he was sure to find Suzanne. Then, he would transfer all his day's frustrations on her at any slight mistake she made. If she smiled too broadly, if she did not sit properly, like he thought a woman ought to, if she was not studying her book, then he kicked her and cursed. If she went into the mansion in his absence, then he made sure she lay on the bed and whipped her with his old leather belt. Whatever frustration life heaped on Patrice, he poured on his young daughter. But Suzanne was of high spirit. Her father's attitude did not bother her in the least. She had become friends with a few of the teenagers in the house. She liked Irene's cousin, Nwanyi Buife, who was also in her school. Suzanne liked the Akidis. Theirs was the kind of life she dreamt for herself, a life where everything was in abundance. Clothes, money, everything on the walls of their house, the kitchenwares, and the way family portraits were hung on the stairway. She liked that the three wives sat out in the evening to make small talk. Broke of Sir Douglas's love affair with a young woman of 17, whose father was a military. Sir Douglas had met Emem at a dinner organized by the military administrator of local. They were surprised that her parents approved of the union when Sir Douglas mentioned it. Suzanne liked to keep a distance, yet she stretched her ears to catch snippets of the women's conversations about how Emem would meet trouble if she dared marry their husband, and how this or that person's wife was a handful, always showing off her husband's wealth as if he was richer than the whole, while they knew the man had nothing. They would sigh, and Suzanne would smile at herself. She would eavesdrop as Irene talked about her colleagues at work. She liked the voice. It was like the drilling of the woodpecker. There was a woodpecker that used to come to the back of her room in the village, and she listening to it drill before she went to bed. She liked Irene the most. She liked that she said her mind and was objective. She did not scream at her if she fidgeted in her presence and became clumsy. Even her father did. Suzanne, of all the people in the household, she liked that he was an important man. She liked that he had so much money he could afford to have 3 wives. She wished she could be or a wife to a man as rich as Sir Douglas. In fact, she knew that was why her father wanted her to go to school. He already told her that it was only education that could make her appealing to a wealthy man. It was only education that would give her the kind of presence Ijeoma and Irene had. So, Suzanne thought if she was a wife to someone like Sir Douglas Akidi, she could ride in a flashy colored car and wear bangles on her wrists and gold necklaces and earrings, and have on the crook of her hands. Suzanne liked to imagine herself twirling her car keys the way she had seen Ijeoma do several times when she was about entering her car in the morning. But that is a mere wish, she always thought. Suzanne liked how other kids at school talked about Sir Douglas Akidi, how he gave out loads of money to charity and helped build the police station, how his son was in Germany, and how his first daughter was a nurse in London. Whenever the other children talked, Suzanne would lift her shoulders high and trot like a turkey, because she lived in Sir Douglas's mansion and not everyone knew that she was not his daughter. In fact, when they asked, she said she was his daughter. She liked to listen to her father talk about Sir Douglas in the evening. Patrice always talked about how Sir Douglas Akidi's money was so long and how if it were to be lined up on the road, it could stretch all the way to Jerusalem and back. Really, Suzanne would ask, can one have that much money? You don't even know, Suzanne. You don't know. That man has so much that he can afford to set us up without knowing a kobo has left his bank account. Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Papa, you don't even know. You don't, my girl. But that was if Patrice was sober. One day, Suzanne asked her father, how did he become so wealthy while most of us are poor? Patrice smiled at his daughter. Hundreds of years back, he told her, Eru people were known warriors who conquered territories. In fact, they conquered and controlled all these places in southern Nigeria. Now, Igbolando, Efik, and Ibibio areas, down to Cameroon even. It is believed that they were able to do this using Ibini Ukpabi, their feared powerful juju. Suzanne's eyes lit up. She said, Papa, there is the Ibini Ukpabi shrine in our village. They transported these oracles totems to all these areas where they had their presence. If a community needed to win a war with their neighbors, then they traveled to Arochukwu and got the totem. Before the white man came here, the Eru exercised maximum hegemony in most of these areas. They controlled trade and commerce. They penetrated almost every community. They were feared, believed to have the powers of sorcery. So they easily got lands, married our women, took over farms, and brought us trade. If an Eru man liked your wife or daughter, he didn't need to ask. He took her for himself as wife. They raided villages, acquired slaves, and sold them off to other faraway communities in and outside the areas they had control. In school, when you get to higher classes, they will teach you about the transatlantic slave trade. Then you will understand. The white men, mostly Portuguese, who were involved in this could not enter the hinterlands because of diseases. They relied on the locals to raid villages, capture their people, and bring them to the coastal lines. Because the Eru controlled southern Nigeria, it was easy for them to participate in these raids and to trade in slaves. And because they did, they had contact with white men and modern facilities, including guns, gunpowders, mirrors, clothing materials, beads, many things. Yes, things that didn't get to this part until much later. The Eru had too much power. Now, if a community had a challenge, say someone was accused of killing another, or of any crime at all, the Eru took the accused and representatives of the community to Arochukwu, to the home of Ibini Ukpabi. The oracle had agents in every village or community. What happened to the oracle's abode is a story for another day. There are conspiracies around these stories that it would take the entire night to share them all with you. But we have all night. There is school tomorrow. Patrice smiled at his daughter. Now, when the British took over from the Portuguese, their interest was far bigger than trading slaves. They wanted to colonize us, knowing there was much more to gain. They met stiff opposition from the Eru. The Eru mounted strong resistance for years, thwarting the efforts of the British colonialists from conquering the Igbo areas. Suzanne, they prevented the white man from establishing their churches in the Igbo hinterlands, preventing them from trading with the Igbos. It is said that they killed missionaries and white traders until Arochukwu was invaded by the white men. There was a brutal war. The British fed the Eru Juju, Suzanne. They called it the Long Juju. So Eru won using the juju. Suzanne, her father laughed. No juju can withstand guns, so. The British had superior firepower. Like what, Papa? While the Eru had then guns and gunpowder they had acquired through their years of trading, the British had sophisticated guns and experience in warfare to their advantage. They had an army which included Nigerians they had conquered in other places. After they conquered Arochukwu, the British partnered with them easily, knowing that for them to succeed in administering the Igbo area, they needed a people who had detailed knowledge of the hinterlands. The white man began to penetrate Igbo communities with the help of the Eru. Eru agents were authorized to rule over these villages and communities. And you should know that Sir Douglas's grandfathers were known and feared slave traders. Jesus! Oh yes! Patrice lowered his voice. He doesn't hide it. He has mentioned it to me several times. His grandfather owned agents and slave stands in such places as where it is said he perforated people's ankles and passed chains through it, connecting several slaves together. Sir Douglas's grandfather? Yes, now. I'm serious.